Hi, marketers. This is Dots, and welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast. With me here is Emily Washcovick, small business expert and host of Behind the Review podcast. By the way, small business expert at Yelp. So I will not let that pass me by. In terms of the topic we are looking at today, the power of reputation management for small businesses. Reputation management is often something for big brands, but now we are looking at the context of small businesses. So if you've never heard this before, don't go anywhere. Let's get locked in. Emily, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today. Really excited to dig into a conversation with you.
Absolutely. By the way, I need to get this elephant out of the room. If you are watching this episode, this was not planned in terms of the matching colors, but yeah, I think it's very
But we look
nice.
great, don't we?
You Okay, so in I know sometimes you say most podcasts start like this, but it's very, very important, isn't it? Which is you telling us about yourself, your background, and all the great strides that you've made in your career.
Absolutely. So I grew up in the Midwest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, went to school at UW-Madison. I got a double major in English and communications. I did event planning for a little while at college universities. So think big scale events on those campus buildings. And then I transitioned into hotels for 2 years. I was a front office manager at a Marriott, which taught me a bunch about customer service and just trial by fire engagement with consumers. In 2014 is when I
Yeah,
joined Yelp, so about
yeah,
10 years ago now, and
yeah,
that was in our San Francisco office at the time. I sold
yeah.
Yelp ads for my first 2 years at the company, and
Hmm.
since 2016, I have been doing small business outreach and helping educate business owners on anything they can do on Yelp that's related to the free tools that we have, and then we also help business owners come up with review response strategies. So I just love working with businesses of all sizes, sometimes in big groups and sometimes in that one-to-one capacity to make sure they're maximizing their online presence.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something there about review response strategies. I think we'll be touching a little bit on that later. So, guys, if you're around, don't go anywhere, okay? Don't even go for toilet breaks, please. Just stay here and listen. Okay. So, the first question really is why, I guess, other businesses that are not in your fold, why should they care? Why should they care about managing their reputation? It is a known fact that small businesses have very short fuse when it comes to marketing expectations. So how does that also help them drive sales and keep the sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way people talk about your business online is a reflection of who you are. And you have your online domains for your business that you own, like your social media or your website, but you have these other areas where consumers are talking about you as well. And so, having a hand and a pulse on all of those different places that you're being talked about is really important because some consumers might hear about your business from a friend or a family member. Maybe they saw an advertisement that you ran somewhere, and then they turn online to actually find your business, validate that information that they got, or dig deeper to see if you're actually the right fit for them. And so you need to be present in those places where consumers are talking about you, and it really is an extension of word of mouth. So many businesses say word of mouth is their primary way of growing and expanding. And online reviews are essentially word of mouth amplified. And so it's important that business owners are not only aware of what's being said about them online, but are engaging with it. And I like to think of it as engaging with customers the same way you would if they were in your business. If you ever had someone ask to talk to a manager to tell you how great things were, or maybe an area that something didn't go so well, you would always answer them. You would never ignore them or turn them away. And that's what I want business owners to think of their online reviews as, a platform where showing up and responding is just as important online as it is off.
Hey there, if you're anything like me, have lots of website traffic, but no idea which ones are window shoppers and which are ready to seal the deal, then I've got a game changer for you. It's Lead Feeder. This is a tool I like using. And what it does is it shows you which companies are coming to your site. You can track their behavior and integrate it with your CRM, which will help take your lead generation efforts to make it more targeted. The result? Convert more website traffic into sales. Head over to leadfeeder.com now for a free demo, and you can also get a free extended premium trial when you let the rep know that you found out about Leadfeeder through the Marketing Leadership Podcast. All right, back to the show. Well, I was going to make a point. I just couldn't wait to share, which is the fact that word of mouth these days could be positive, it could be negative. Imagine a virtual version of somebody, an angry customer in the restaurant that said, I want to see your manager. I want to see your manager. Where's the manager? So I think we'll be discussing more about how to do things right, or at least manage negative situations as we go on into the episode. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So now go to your second or third point.
Yeah, I was just going to transition to that follow up you had to the first question, which was about how these online platforms can drive sales and how you can use your online reputation to actually fuel foot traffic and getting customers through the door into your business. And really, the way you want to think about it is you want to think about all of your online review sites as another point where consumers get information about you. So look for your hours, check to see what the vibe of the business is. What kind of clothes am I going to wear when I come visit your business? What kind of service can I expect? And so all of those things are going to be information that a consumer is going to want to see. And if we don't have that information there, they're going to move on to look for another option, right? And so when you're thinking about driving sales with those online review sites, I want you to think about showing up in a way that makes you an approachable and obvious choice. When someone searches on Yelp, they already know what they want and they have the money to spend on it. They just don't know who to spend that money with. It's much different than an initial Google search, say, to figure out information about how to do a home project or how to make a certain dish. When you're on Yelp, you're actually looking for a business to provide those goods or services for you. And so, as a business owner, you want to think of Yelp and other online review sites as a place where you have your information correct and accurate, but you're also engaging in a way that shows your personality because that's going to make the consumer choose you and ultimately think that you're a great fit because you care about what customers are saying about you.
Yeah, and in terms of setting up small business profiles, would you say, and this may probably putting you on the spot there, would you say these review sites or small business profile sites are a good, I don't want to use the word replacement, but are a good start for websites? So, for example, like, is it okay if I don't have a website right now, as long as I have all sorts of business profiles?
Yeah, and we actually tell business owners that you might not need a website. It kind of depends on your industry and your business and how much money or time or resources you can invest into getting a website. Again, I think that websites are great. I think it's something that you own to have the information about your business, but they do take time and resources to create. A Yelp profile, a Google business profile, any sort of online review site where your business can have a presence is going to make it easier for you to share all of that same information. And consumers actually turn to review sites for more than just reviews. They turn to check hours and to see photos. So it really is a great alternative and option to not only add in addition to a website, but like you said, to kind of fill in and provide that really important consumer information. How can we get in touch with you? When are you available? And what do you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's say I'm a small business I've moved away from, and I've worked with a few small businesses in the past. I often do it like a CSR project. So I've got a couple of them ongoing right now. And let's say, the profile completeness side is already sorted out. What are some of the other things in terms of, capabilities of these reputation management platforms that can help businesses? And the reason why I'm asking that is, and I guess the obvious guinea pig is reviews, right? I met this guy. He hasn't even worked on his review yet. Understandable. He's very busy. We need to work on it. Don't make it anything crazy. If you have a contact list, just send them a text. He did that in one day and got 20 extra reviews, which is a big deal when you're looking at word of mouth marketing. So that's just one example, and feel free to elaborate more on that. But what are some of the various, I guess, lesser known capabilities of review sites or reputation, PR, reputation management sites that can help small businesses, again, get more sales? Because I know that's all they care about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I want to note is that Yelp actually has a strong stance against review solicitation, and we don't allow business owners to solicit or ask for reviews because we think it creates an innate bias. We would much rather those reviews come naturally. And so we always tell business owners it's great to leave a trail of breadcrumbs. And what I mean by that is there's lots you can do to let customers know that you're online and that you care about getting online reviews and feedback without specifically asking for that review. And some of the stuff is exactly like you're talking about, making some strategies for how you connect the web of your online presence, right? How do we take your website and your Yelp site and your Instagram and make them all connected and talking about the same things that you provide? And so, what you want to do is when you get a great review, use that in your marketing. Maybe you're sharing reviews on social media. Maybe you have a section on your website where you share customer feedback. These are all really great ways that you can show consumers, hey, we care about this information. We care about hearing from you without actually asking for that review. And then the other thing that's really important about online profiles in general, and I know you mentioned, let's assume the profile is complete, but I do just want to give two quick completeness tips. And they're not just for Yelp, they're for all profiles in general. When you're claiming your business page and you're filling out your about section and all of the details of who you are, those keywords and phrases that you use are going to help you appear in search results. So you don't want to use it like Google AdWords. You don't want to take a bunch of keywords and separate them by commas. You want to write in sentences, but you want to be mindful of the keywords or services or terms that your customers might look for so that you can implement that into your description. The same is true on Yelp with your photos and your photo captions. So the keywords and phrases that you include in those captions help you appear in search results. So it's great to put photos of all of your service offerings, your menu items, and then really use those captions to give you that additional context and help you appear in those SEO results. The main thing I really wanted to dig into when you were first posing this question, though, is talking about building a response strategy. Because I think what a lot of business owners do is they wait until they get a review and then they figure out how they're going to respond to it. And I think that just creates a lot of emotional baggage that you don't really need to deal with when you get a review. So, if instead we can sit down and have a little outline of what our strategy approach is going to be, I think that's great. And it doesn't need to be pages upon pages. It's really this basic jumping off point. And I can give the advice right now of what that template would look like. In my mind, we want to have a plan for a positive review and we want to have a plan for a critical review. I'll start with the critical because that's the one people are more worried about. But I do just want to point out on Yelp, we have more 5-star reviews than 1, 2, and 3-star reviews combined. So overwhelmingly, people are sharing places that they love. But I get it. When you get a critical review as a business owner, it is very personal. And we just want to get rid of it, right? We just don't want that on our page. But I want business owners to think of this a little differently. And I want them to think of having a response strategy as a marketing tactic. When you get that critical review, let's respond. Let's respond publicly. And let's respond by keeping all of our future consumers in mind. Now, we're going to address the reviewer. We'll start by thanking them. Even if we're not very happy with what they shared, we want to look professional. And this is really a public response. So, starting with that thank you, addressing something that they mentioned, but not getting into the details of every single thing. We just want to highlight maybe 1 or 2 things that they zoned in on. And then we want to take the conversation offline, give them an opportunity to connect with us via email or via phone. And it's great if we can talk to this customer, if we can turn things around and make them happy. But ultimately, we're really responding because we want to show future consumers that we care. And we also want to show that if you have a problem, come to us as a consumer and we'll make it right. And so that public response is a strategy in my mind that really is furthering your marketing and furthering your customer service practices. I'll quickly touch on a response strategy for a positive review too, because I think this is a huge missed opportunity.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, you're totally getting it, Dots. Your face is telling me you understand, right? You get that positive review as a business owner and you're like, "Great, they're happy. I'm going to move on to my next task." But this is a consumer that loves you so much, they took time to sit down and write about it. So if you can respond to that, you not only deepen the relationship with that consumer, but if you want to be strategic about it, you can respond and either reiterate something that they mentioned or mention another offering or menu item that you have that maybe they didn't try. And that review response can help you get more of that SEO visibility for those keywords, terminologies, menu offerings, etc. So think of that response strategy as I have a plan no matter what kind of review comes in. I have a little framework, and then I'm going to add a personal sentence or two based on the particular consumer review.
Yeah. In starting this podcast, it was supposed to be an MBA. So every time I'm looking at a guest, I'm noting all the key things that I've learned. Being proactive with the review strategy, response strategy, either way, I think it's an amazing thing. I could take this recording right now and sell it for thousands of dollars on the internet. So thank you so much for sharing that. And um, the other thing you mentioned there is somewhat like looking at reputation management as one good turn deserves another, right? So the passive approach, I think that was very interesting, right? To say, naturally in the course of your business, if you overwhelm a customer, they will find you up and they will give you a review. And then if you want to push that a little bit, you can use some of those reviews in your marketing to show that this is what people are saying. If people are happy, there's always that FOMO. I want to get my own review featured as well. So we're doing that at some point whereby we're showing reviews of, say, this podcast from where it started going forward. So that passive approach to review gathering, I think, is very, very awesome. Of course, there are other systems that allow active solicitation. I think, but in general, there are borderlines, right? Don't force a 5-star review. Don't manufacture reviews. Don't do all that stuff, right? It's whatever you sow, you will reap. You want to say something to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, even sending out follow ups to your customers, telling them you'd love to hear about their experience, and then linking to all of the places where they could share a review and letting them choose the platform that works for them. That's what I would recommend because, again, you don't want to try to turn your customers into Yelpers. You just want to create great connections with customers and let those Yelpers go and write those Yelp reviews naturally.
Yeah. I hope they hear. Like I said, startup phase is always very, I don't know, cutthroat sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, let's just do it. We need to make the money. But there's a lot of ethical consideration to some of these things, and I love it. So if you're on the reputation management side, you're seeing the overall strategic approach, as for those listening or watching. There's also something I would like to explore with you, and feel free to speak to this in general, right? Um, whether it's review sites or other small business reputation solutions out there, there is some level of brand advertising opportunities involved. You had spoken on the website about the need for naturally occurring SEO orchestration, as I would use that word. But now I'm talking about brand advertising opportunities within those platforms. Are there any that you've come across? Again, I love where you are going with this. How do we treat everything with they say everything is permissible only in moderation.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of how you're actually growing, and I want to make sure I'm going in the right direction with this. Are you thinking that we wanna try to give these listeners advice for some of those paid opportunities and kinda walking through the different platforms that they could use their reputation to grow through paid avenues? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, somewhat in that way. Yeah, not very prescriptive. Again, we don't sell silver bullets here. They don't sell very well. So, but yes, it's based on those in terms of the trends that are available, and we all on the pod can make up our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just give you a little rundown on some of the stuff related to what you could do in advertising on Yelp for your brands, depending on the size. And then I'll just talk in general a little bit about some of the successful things I've seen in the social side. I think advertising on social is sometimes a big question mark for business owners. So I can maybe talk about a little of what's worked there. I do want to just briefly talk about Yelp because it will cover search ads in general. Yelp advertising is very similar to a lot of search based advertising that business owners might be familiar with. So they can actually set a budget and determine how many times we promote them above number one and on competitor pages. There's also profile enhancement features. So, ordering your photos, adding different buttons or activations on your page that will allow customers to engage with you and spend. So there's lots of different paid features that you can use as a small business to just get that visibility. Take advantage of all of the consumers that are looking in the area and make yourself an obvious choice. We also have suites of features for larger businesses too. So businesses can advertise on Yelp's homepage. They can also use Yelp data off platform. So, if they want to take a consumer who has searched for something on Yelp and then find them when they're on Facebook later and give them a targeted ad. Yep. So all of those traditional digital advertising methods exist on Yelp. I think when it comes to the small business and figuring out how to invest and where to spend your time, you definitely want to look at those high conversion, low funnel platforms like Yelp, where a consumer is actually in the buying phase. But platforms like social media can also be a valuable place to invest your time and resources and grow. And I think what I've seen most successful when it comes to social media advertising is really doing that behind the scenes, people on camera content. And so, letting customers know who you are and feel like they're in your business, even if they're just looking through their phone, is the best way to attract those people who are going to be in your network. And then I think the other thing is to get a little bit prescriptive internally about what you're trying to sell. Sometimes I think when we're advertising, we're just thinking like, here's our business, we're going to promote it everywhere. And if you're looking for anything we provide, reach out to us.
Reach out to us. Yeah, fill the form.
And a more effective thing to do is to think of a couple of your offerings or menu items and how you can advertise specifically to those things. Who's the ideal client for that service or for that menu item? And how can we curate ad content that's going to draw them in? So instead of being so general, get a little bit prescriptive about the areas you'd like to grow your sales in and if we can specifically try to engage some users online to attract them to that.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, so much to unpack there for sure. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I like the angle you mentioned in terms of like low low cost, high conversion, maybe mid funnel or bottom funnel, because on social media, it's probably like at the top of the marketing funnel. You want to know about your brand. Somebody sees something on your social, maybe even a social ad, and decide to say, okay, let me find out about you guys on Yelp. Maybe it's a Yelper. Let me use your language there. And because of what they've seen on social media, they come to Yelp, they search, and then they find you. Even if they don't find you as a paid result, because of that connection on social media, they are willing to scroll all the way. But even easier if they find you at the top as the obvious choice. So being able to, pun intended, they're connecting the dots across those buying experiences, and leveraging paid media, I think is something that is really, really key. Um, in my own opinion, I think small businesses should use more, especially in the service space, should use more of paid media within those platforms. And like I said, I work with a couple of people, and that's what I tell them. There's one in particular, and this person loves it, right? So it's a bit of an investment for sure, but do what you can afford, right? I think this system have made it so great, and I'm sure it's the same thing on Yelp, whereby it's almost like a pay per result perspective. We're not going to bother you on pay per click or anything like that. If you don't get a result, you don't pay for it. Now, whether the result is quality or not is not in the hands of the publisher. So but yeah, it's a very interesting space. If you're in the small business part of marketing, you're a business leader with a marketing acumen, yeah, you want to explore Yelp and some of the other platforms out there.
And I think when you set up ads, no matter where you're doing it, you need to have a way that you're actually asking customers how they found you so that you can make that connection between all the data points you have online in your Yelp account and Google Analytics, but also what you're seeing in your business. And I do think that's a big area of missed opportunity sometimes. Businesses will invest in getting more business, getting more leads, and then they're not tracking if the lead is converting, maybe why we lost them, and being able to drill down and see how can we do the best thing we can do to convert a lead into a client. So that's just good advice across the board. Ask your customers where they're finding you and try to connect that data to the information you have in your different accounts.
And it could also, that information can help to improve your marketing as well, in terms of the channel fits, the messaging, and things like that. But you're right. We are so busy, even the enterprises, Emily, we are so busy with acquisition these days. And I'll continue to say it. I've said it a lot on this podcast. We are so busy. We are so fixated on acquisition that we are not looking at retention or the lack of it, churn, and using that as a means to improve the business. The goal of an ideal business is to overwhelm a certain group of people, and then the network effect kicks in. Really, so it's not really about just getting the volumes there. But yeah, thanks for highlighting that. And I think for anyone here, it's going to be very, 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 very important. This has been fun so far. First of all, personally, I've learned about passive review solicitation before my tongue gets cut off. But if you're listening, if you're on the pod, if you're watching, you've probably learned way more or way less, depending on where you are. But regardless of what it is, please just share this episode. It helps us out, because at the end of the day, it's real knowledge for real people. So it's not just about talking about marketing and feeling very good about knowing small business marketing and showing how great Emily is. Yes, she's great for sure, but it's really about the wisdom that comes from the topic of this episode. As you share, you don't forget that it helps us a lot. It encourages us to do more of this. We have our listener value, whereby hopefully you get something important from 3 episodes from our podcast, or you find another podcast. We do a lot to find unique perspectives to common topics just like this one. So again, reputation management is not typically discussed in the context of small businesses, which is why it's a very unique take. So it's just a long way of begging you guys to share. Thank you very much. One more question for you, Emily, and before then it's going to be a quick brief from our sponsor, and then we'll come back for the Dots rapid fire. Extremely hot, so try to do some ice bucket challenge to stay wet. We'll be right back, guys. Last question is probably the most interesting. So it's actually the most interesting, and I'll give you one word: feedback management. You're going to love it, so don't go anywhere. Okay, guys. So, like I said, it's the Dots Rapid Fire. Emily is in the very hot kitchen, hot marketing kitchen. She's going to answer three questions and say the truth and nothing but the truth. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First one, which is a bit of a tricky one in the context of this topic, but what is your favorite marketing metric apart from sales or revenues?
Yeah, I said leads. Honestly, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about leads because it's such a broad term, right? It means something different to different businesses. And that's why I like it as a metric because I like to help my SMBs figure out which lead is the most valuable for you. And then also, how can we get more of that specific lead? And what do we have to do to convert that lead? So I think leads is a great place for SMBs to zone in because they can actually get some real information around what's happening and what's happening online and what they're seeing with actual customers in their business as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, lead conversion rate is very, very key. So you're not looking at the volume, you are looking at the relevance. It's very at the local level. Like, it's just as competitive. So yeah, but that makes sense. Yeah. The second question, how long do you use social media every day for work?
Okay, I'm embarrassed to admit that it's definitely a few hours, but that's because I'm looking at stuff. I'm also messaging people on Yelp and Instagram. So I'm on there quite a bit. I do think that sometimes we give ourselves a bad rap for that. And if you're following the right content, if you're zoning in on the right stuff, don't feel bad about it. It's okay to be on there. And especially as a small business owner, that's a great connection point for you to meet consumers, other entrepreneurs. So I'm on there a couple hours and don't feel bad if you are too.
Yeah, don't say, nobody has time for social media. Let's make the money. It's sometimes not about that. Small businesses they are very cocky, if I'll use that one. Oh, don't worry. I know what has been driving sales. You marketers come with this and that. Please just have an open mind. I think indirectly is what Emily is saying. And which is why we sort of craft that question to say what to use for work. Because either way, you are affecting your company, you are affecting your salary positively, because if it's not doing that, then you will probably not be there. So in terms of like the answers to the questions, 1 hour has been the most common, followed by 2, and then we have folks like yourself who will do a couple of hours. We're just speaking to a guest not too long ago, and they were like, almost every waking day, because they are often, discussing content and things like that. I'm like, okay, well, like I said, for work. So as long as it's making that result, please, no issues with that. Okay, the last rapid fire question: what is your favorite marketing quote?
I love this Jay Bear quote that says, hugging your haters is not a cost, it's a profit center. And that's from his book, Hug Your Haters, which is a great book. I recommend it to everyone. And it's all about reputation management, but also just customer engagement and how to take those customers that maybe you think of as a hater and really turn them into your most loyal and dedicated supporters.
Yeah. I know he's missed my mail, but we're still trying to reach out for a guest appearance. So
Good luck. I'll send good luck for your way because he would be an amazing guest. That would be awesome.
thank you, thank you. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean that sort of leads us to the last question, isn't it? Feedback management, social listening. I mean, it could be a lot of work for some, and some will just be like, let me just move on. But in my opinion, of course, in your opinion, it's probably one of the best PR tools or reputation management tools for small businesses. If we even look back at the feedback strategy that you had mentioned earlier, it's incredibly important. Uh, so, what are some of the other best practices, for marketers or anybody in the CX space, to that they can apply to make this work best? And I'm saying that also in the context of social listening, right? Whereby you listening locally for what is being spoken about within your environment. Maybe you're in WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups at the local level, and you're trying to plug in as much as possible with your solution. So things like that, how does that work in your world?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is first, you have to have an awareness of where people are talking about you. And my best piece of advice for that is to just set up Google alerts for the name of your business, for the name of your owner. I have a couple Google alerts set up myself. I like to see if my name is mentioned somewhere on the internet and some other key terms. You can set them up for whatever keywords you want. You can even change how often you're getting the notification of if your business has been mentioned. So set those up. That'll help you also identify if there's like a new platform or website that's maybe popped up for your industry or something like that. The next step is to have notifications turned on for all of the platforms you care about. So, have those Yelp notifications, the Googles, all of those things. You want to make it easy on yourself instead of feeling like you have to go dig up the information all the time, right? You want it to come to you and then you can kind of work through it when it works for your calendar. So, have that awareness of where you're being talked about. I also think it's very beneficial to catalog your feedback. And for some people, that's a lot of extra work. But what I think a missed opportunity is sometimes is when you just see those positive reviews come in and you're like, oh, great, 5 stars. I'm happy about it. You'll notice though, there's a lot of information being said in reviews that sometimes doesn't always automatically align with the star rating. Like maybe this person gave you 5 stars and they loved most everything, but they could have mentioned something in there that could help your team improve or your operations change. And if you're just looking at the stars and not absorbing what the consumer is saying, that's a loss for you and your team.
Yeah.
I think oh, go ahead, Dots, go
No,
ahead.
I was gonna say people like myself that are very soft. I'll give you a 5-star review, but we might still complain about one little thing. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that is just an example that expands to this topic of social listening, right? Um, you're not going to be able to see and react to everything, but where can we identify trends? Where can we see something that maybe aligns positively or negatively with something we're also experiencing in the business, Another thing that I think is really easy to do, but sometimes overlooked because it doesn't feel easy, is using those platforms to solicit information from your customers about their experiences, what their needs are, what they liked. And again, not everyone is going to fill out a survey, but even if you just create an Instagram story with a couple of options for people to click through, what's your favorite dish you have at our restaurant? What's a menu item you wish we added? These are ways where you can get bits of data and information about customers or the people in your area. And I think it's very impactful. The other thing that I think is really powerful when you're doing this stuff, especially social media, is getting a little bit off of the bandwagon of perfection. I think a lot of times as a business, when we think about putting information about our business out there, we want it to be perfect and polished, right? We want the professional photographer to come in and take all the photos. But really, what the social media user wants to see is you in the back of the kitchen, showing the staff, prepping the dinner. It doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be human. And so think of that when you show up online. Don't avoid posting because it isn't polished. Really maximize the smartphone that we all have in our pockets these days to generate content. And someone once told me you should think of social media posts like popcorn. It's pop, pop, popping. And it'll eventually be stale at some point, but that's not when it was needed, right? When it was posted, it was relevant, and social is fast. It's constantly moving. So don't worry so much about having it perfect. Just worry about consistently showing up and being human.
Yeah. I love the I love the reviews part in terms of like cataloging or archiving or saving reviews. Yes, of course, we both agree it's a lot of work. But you do it, you might have a competitive advantage even at the local level. And in some cases, you have to compete with international businesses at the local level. So a lot of local competition these days. But have you ever imagined, somebody taking a host of reviews with all this information, put it in, say, ChatGPT, tell me some of the most opportunities for improvement on my product based on these reviews. ChatGPT, tell me some of the things I should be using on my website. in messaging concerning these reviews, things like that. I don't know if that's something you've thought of, but for anybody doing that, that's supposed to be very smart. I think it's very smart. But yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ChatGPT and AI are great tools that business owners can leverage. I think the big asterisk on this topic all the time is that it's not a replacement for a human. It's going to just help you do it. And the thing I always recommend when I talk about ChatGPT with business owners is you have to learn how to prompt it in order to get the most out of it. And so, what I've learned in using it these past few months for work is you don't normally just ask it one question. You're normally going to have to maybe feed it back a couple of changes before you get what you're ultimately looking for. But if we're talking about cataloging review content or coming up with a little response for a review that we're going to maybe tweak and customize, it is so perfect for that. It's also great for getting you started on processes or systems. Like if you want to create a social media content calendar, ChatGPT can help give you that framework and then you can make it custom to your own information. So I'm a big fan of leveraging those tools. And I also think that, leveraging your teammates and your counterparts is great as well. I know a lot of small businesses that have a part time employee who does most of their social media and online stuff. And sometimes that's just an owner having to decide or give up the freedom of some of that content creation. But it's great to leverage tools like ChatGPT or even part time employees to get some of that started. And you can still approve it or finalize it as the owner. But those tools are great at making more get done with less time.
Yeah, I mean it's better than not being there, right? Knowing that your customers are there, your potential customers are there. So do whatever you can within your, I guess, growth trajectory or phase to get in, leveraging these marketing channels as much as possible, and be human. Very, very key to be human. Tech is great, but many times we sink into it, we are lost in it. Please let us just focus. That if you call my daughter today and say, "What's daddy's biggest advice in 5 years?" Is this just one word? Focus. So let's focus on driving value. I think this podcast is one of the biggest examples out of 300 on why human communication is extremely important. So thank you so much for sharing all that. Thank you. Like I said, I've learned a few things myself, most especially the passive review collection. So thank you so much for sharing all this with all of us here. Where can we follow you? Where can we learn more about you? On this journey to helping small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So business.yelp.com is going to be the main hub for all Yelp related business stuff. You can find our podcast there. You can log in or claim your own business page there. And there's tons of content and resources to help guide you as well. You can also check out our podcast, Behind the Review. And every single week, we feature a conversation with a business owner and someone who wrote them a Yelp review. So you get to hear both the business side and the consumer side. We talk about all different things that can help you grow your business, market your business, things of that nature. You can also follow Yelp for Business on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and you can follow me on those platforms as well. It's just my last name. I also always share my email address. I've worked for Yelp for 10 years now. Thousands of people have it, so you will not be a stranger. If you have a Yelp question, you can reach me at EmilyRW@Yelp.com or podcasts@Yelp.com. Both of those come directly to me. And if I'm not the right person to answer your question, I can certainly connect you to the right person at Yelp who is.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, what a great podcast name, Behind the Review. Podcast name is starting to become somewhat of a challenge these days because podcasts are just popping up everywhere. Again, another story for another episode. As regard this one, we have just come to the end, guys. And if you want to see more, just go to dotslovesmarketing.com. That's my website. You also want to check out this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search marketing leadership and hopefully you'll find me there somewhere. Till next time, guys, connect the dots.